Hi friends, welcome to Classic Education YouTube channel. Today we will be learning about the Rajya Sabha elections or Rajya Sabha polls. Right? As you know, recently there were the elections for the selecting the candidates for the Rajya Sabha. These elections were held in the 4 states, namely Rajasthan, Haryana, Karnataka and Maharashtra. These 4 states together elected 16 members to the upper house. As you know, India is a democracy. In our democratic setup, we have the highest level of legislating body called as the parliament. This parliament constitutes 2 houses. One is upper house and another one is the lower house. This upper house is called as the Rajya Sabha and lower house is the Lok Sabha. See, recently these elections were held for the selecting the candidates for this Rajya Sabha or the upper house. Okay. See, what is the election process? Before entering into the election process, let us see when the seats become vacant in the Rajya Sabha. See, as and when the vacancy arises, then only the elections can be held, right? See, according to that principle, recently the elections were held to fill the vacancies. When the vacancy arises in the Rajya Sabha, see, there are 3-4 instances. First instance is when the member retires from his job, or when a sitting MP retires, then the vacancy arises naturally, right? There are other instances like resignation of the member or disqualification of the member or death of a sitting member. If a sitting member dies in the office, or if he resigns from his office, or if he is disqualified from his office, then the vacancy arises. These elections are held to fill these vacancies. See, if the person or the sitting MP is retired, see, the election is held for selecting the candidate for 6 years, right? See, usually after the person retires, this retired seat or the vacant seat will be filled for next 6 years of term. But the vacancy arises because of the death or the disqualification or resignation of a member, that then the elections will be held for that seat, and that person has to serve the remainder period of his predecessor. Let us see, if a sitting MP, he has served the period of 6 years. Let us assume that a sitting MP in the Rajya Sabha has served the 6 years of his term. Still 3 years are remaining. If he has served the 6 years of 3 years of term, and even 3 years are remaining, this election, or it is called as the by-election. By-elections are held for these seats, and the newly elected member will continue, or he will fulfill his predecessor's remaining term. Right? If the sitting MP has resigned from his office after 3 years of his presence in the office, he has still 3 years remaining, right? The new MP will come and he will occupy that seat, and he will be in that seat for next 3 years, right? See, if the vacancy arises because of the retirement, 3 years, the new MP will serve the 6 years. If the vacancy arises because of the death or disqualification or resignation, the newly elected MP will serve for remainder period of his predecessor's office. Okay, this is the vacancy. Now, coming to the election process. How these elections are held to the Rajya Sabha, and who participates in this election, and what are the election principles, and what are the requirements of the candidate, right? Now, first coming to the election principle. These Rajya Sabha elections are held on the principle called proportional representation by means of single transferable vote and open ballot system. See, there are 3 very important terminologies here, right? Proportional representation, single transferable vote, and open ballot system. See, we will study all these terms in detail. Now we will go to the next concept called the participants or the electors or the voters. Who will participate in this election? The Constitution says that all the members of the Legislative Assembly of all the states, they have the right to participate in this election. Even the union territories having their own legislative assemblies, the members of that legislative assembly can also participate in this election process. That means the MLAs, all the MLAs in the country, they will participate in the election of the Rajya Sabha members. Okay. Now, principal electors and the proposers. If a person has to stand for the election for the Lok Sabha, he has to be proposed or he has to be supported by some members, right? Each and every member who is participating in the election, he has to be supported by at least 10 members of the assembly. That means in Karnataka, there were 4 candidates in the Rajya Sabha election, recently held Rajya Sabha election, right? Each and every 4 candidate, among all these 4 candidates, all the candidate got the 10 person's permission or proposal. There were 10 members for each person. This candidate, after having the backup or after having the support of 10 members, his candidature will be considered. Even if a party is not nominating any person, all these the candidates who are in the fray, they will be from political parties, right? Some of the members will be from they are from the independent nature. So they are the independent candidates. They do not have any party backup. Even though any person who is independent person, if he doesn't have any party backup, he should also be having the support of 10 members, right? That means all the candidates should have the 10 members proposal, or there should be 10 proposers behind them. See, this is the election process, right? Election principal elector participants in the election and the proposers. Now, coming to the very important term called single transferable vote. See, what is this single transferable vote? Unlike the Lok Sabha elections or the general election, in the general election, we do not have this system called single transferable vote, right? These votes are not transferable. See, general elections are held in the country after every 5 years, right? Even in the state, for state legislative assemblies, elections are held after every 5 years. In these general elections, there is no such a system called single transferable vote, right? There is only one vote, it should not be transferred, right? It is not a transferable vote. But in the elections to the Rajya Sabha or to the presidential election or for electing the vice president, we follow the system called single transferable vote, right? See, these elections, the elections to the post of vice president, to the post of president, and to the Rajya Sabha seats, they are based on the proportional representation. That means these candidates are representing certain group of people, this population, right? They are representing some population. That is why it is called as the proportional representation. That means they are representing certain proportion of the population, right? If the elections are based on the proportional representation, they will be held according to the single transferable vote. See, let me explain. Let us see. In Karnataka, there were 4 candidates for the election. 4 seats were there. There were 6 candidates who were in the fray. That means these 6 candidates were, fighting for the seat. That means as many candidates are there, so many preferences will be there for each and every voter. Each voter will be having, or he will be exercising his order of preference. See, this is a first order, second order, third order, fourth order, fifth, and 6th. So as many candidates are there, so many preferences will be there for each and every voter. See, in Karnataka, how many voters are there? That means MLAs. Total Karnataka Legislative Assembly has the 224 MLAs, right? Each and every 224 member will exercise his preferences. These are the preferences: first preference, second preference, third, fourth, and 6th, right? Let us see. For the MLA X MLA exercises his vote now. He will prefer B as the first preferred candidate. B will be his first preference. D will be his second preference, right? A will be his third preference. E will be his fourth preference, right? F will be his 5th, and C will be his 6th preference. That means each and every voter has his order of preference. This is his order of preference, right? Likewise, all the 24 MLAs will exercise their order of preference. The candidate which gets the maximum number of first order, here the B got the high, first preference. Likewise, if after election process is over, they will count all the votes. The candidate which got the maximum number of first order vote, he will be declared as the winner, right? If the second, they have to elect 4 members. The first person got the highest number of first votes. Then if the person, he has not got the highest number of first vote, then his second order votes will be shifted to his first order, right? See, he's here, let us see, in this case D got the second preference, right? In this process, the D was the second in the fight, right? His second, after eliminating his first preference votes, his second preference vote will be accumulated and they will be added to his first preference votes. Likewise, the 4 candidates will be elected, right? That means the vote of a MLA will be transferred according to his preferences. This is called as the single transferable vote system, right? See, next let us come to the Nota option. This is none of the above option, right? In the general election, the elections which are held for the legislative assemblies of the state or the election held for the Lok Sabha election, there is an option called Nota or none of the above option. After, see, let us see, there are 16 candidates in the election, okay? For example, in a particular constituency, there are 16 candidates, right? I will go to the voting process. I will not prefer any of these 16 candidates. I will exercise my vote for the Nota. Nota will be written at the bottom of this list of the candidates, right? If I do not prefer any of the candidates fielded by the political parties, I will prefer the none of the above exercise, okay? Nota option. See, this Nota option is not there in the Rajya Sabha election, right? See, for the Supreme Court says that, see, initially the parliament by the legislative process, it introduced the Nota option for the Rajya Sabha election, for the Lok Sabha election also. Now, the Supreme Court in a case, it said that none of the above option should not be, exercised in the Rajya Sabha election, because these Rajya Sabha elections are held based on the proportional representation. That means here the people are not directly electing the candidates, they are indirectly electing. That means initially at the first level, the people will elect their representatives in the legislative assemblies. The MLAs will in turn elect the Rajya Sabha members. That means it is an indirect election. Supreme Court says that whenever there is an indirect election, there the Nota option should not be exercised, right? See, because of this, we do not have the Nota option in the Rajya Sabha election. Now, I said after single transferable vote and Nota, there is one more concept called open ballot system, right? Open ballot system. See, in the Lok Sabha election, we will exercise the secret ballot. See, the Lok Sabha elections are based on the secret ballot system, but Rajya Sabha elections are based on the open ballot system. That means when you exercise your vote, right, when you mark your vote, when you prefer order of preference for the different candidates, you have to show your ballot to the authorized person in the election booth, right? See, in every election booth, there will be some officials, right? They will be monitoring the election process. See, in the Lok Sabha election, it is completely secret system. Voter here, there is no need for the voter to show his ballot paper to any one of the officers in the election booth. But in the Rajya Sabha election, the MLA, he is a voter, MLA is a voter, right? This voter has to show his marked ballot. I said he will prefer different candidates. After his exercise of preferences, he has to show his ballot paper openly to the authorized person in the election booth, right? This authorized person is nothing but none other than the person who is permitted by the political party. Different political parties will be fielding their candidates for the Rajya Sabha election, right? These political parties will ask a certain person to sit in the election booth. This person will monitor the election process. See, if I am an MLA, I will put my preference, right? I will show the ballot paper to the authorized person. In this way, this is the open ballot system, right? See, authorized person is very important. if you show your exercised vote, if you show your marked ballot to any other person other than the authorized person, your vote will be considered as invalid. So this vote, the voter who shows his marked ballot to other than the authorized person, it is called as the invalid vote. One. And if you do not show your marked ballot paper to the authorized person, it is also called as the invalid vote. If your vote has to be valid, you must show that a ballot to the authorized person, and you should not show this ballot to the any other person. Otherwise, it is considered as the invalid vote, right? See, this is the open ballot system, and this is the invalidity of the votes. Now, let us come to the cross voting. Right? We have a lot of national parties. See, major national parties in India are BJP and the Indian National Congress, right? Bharatiya Janata Party and the Indian National Congress. Now, BJP will field some of the candidates. Let us see in Karnataka, the BJP has fielded 4 candidates and the Indian National Congress has fielded the 4 candidates. Now, Indian National Congress, this party will ask its members in the House to vote for these candidates, right? The MLAs who belong to the Congress party, they should support the candidates which are fielded by the Congress party only. But what if these Congress MLAs vote for the BJP candidate? Right? It is called as the cross voting. The political party member, if he exercise his vote for the another person which is filled by different party, it is called as the cross voting, right? See, if this cross voting happens, what happens usually? It will amount to the disqualification, right? The Supreme Court in a case, it said that if a person involves in the cross voting, it should not be considered as the disqualification under the anti-defection law. As you know, the anti-defection law was passed in the year 1952. It has various provisions or the conditions. If a particular member meets these conditions, he will be disqualified from his office. But the Supreme Court says that if a candidate or if a MLA he involves in the cross voting in the Rajya Sabha election process, he should not be disqualified under the provisions of the anti-defection law of 1952, right? This is the cross voting. Then this all about is the Rajya Sabha elections. Now we saw how the elections are held, what is the principle of election, who are involved in the election process, and what is the requirement or how much proposals are, how many proposals are required for a particular candidate. Now let us think or let us try to understand in general about the Rajya Sabha. I said we have the highest legislative body in the country called as the parliament. This parliament has the 2 houses. This Rajya Sabha is nothing but our upper house, right? It is also called as the House of Elders, right? The lower chamber, that is the Lok Sabha, it is called as the House of People. This House of Elders or the Rajya Sabha, it was for the first time constituted in the year 1952. So first Rajya Sabha constituted in the 1952, it is continuously is in existence. You might have heard or you might have read about the dissolution of the houses, right? Unlike the Lok Sabha is subjected to the dissolution. It is not a continuous body. After every years, the election must be held. After every year, the incumbent Council of Ministers will be dissolved by the President. But in the House of Elders or the Rajya Sabha, there is no such a provision called the dissolution. Because there is no such a provision called a dissolution, it is called as the continuous house or continuing house or permanent house. It will never be not dissolved by the President. How this continuity is ensured? That means in the Lok Sabha, after every year, new members are elected to the Lok Sabha. But here in the Rajya Sabha, there is no 5-year term, right? These members will serve their 6-year term in the office, but they will retire. 1/3 of the members of the Rajya Sabha will retire after every 2 years. After every 2 years, these elections will be held. So what we are seeing today in the recent news, these elections are held to fill these vacancies. 1/3 members were retired. For these retired seats, we are the Election Commission of India is holding the elections. See, in this way, it is a continuous body or it is a permanent body. Who is the head of this house? In the Lok Sabha, there is a presiding officer called as the speaker. But for the Rajya Sabha, the presiding officer is called as the chairman. this chairman is none other than the President of India. By means of being in the office of Vice President, this Vice President will serve as the chairman of the Rajya Sabha. He is called as the ex officio chairman. That means the post of chairman is not filled by means of elections. The Vice President is elected by the indirectly elected by the people. This Vice President will serve as the chairman of the Rajya Sabha. Right? One more thing. The Constitution has some of the provisions. The term of office of these Rajya Sabha members is 6 years. Right? This term 6 years is not fixed by the Constitution. It gave the powers to the Parliament to fix the term of office for the Rajya Sabha members. So because of this, the Parliament by law it said, or it has a fixed 6 years as the term for the Rajya Sabha members. But the term of office for the Lok Sabha members is 5 years, right? 5 years for Lok Sabha, 6 years for Rajya Sabha. There is one more schedule in the Constitution called 4th schedule, right? This 4th schedule talks about allocation of the seats in the Rajya Sabha to the different states and the union territories. That means this Rajya Sabha is composed of union territories as well as the states. Every state has the representation in the Rajya Sabha, but the union territories which have legislative assemblies, only such union territories have the representation in the Rajya Sabha. And the Constitution has also fixed the strength of the Rajya Sabha. The present strength or the sanctioned strength of the Rajya Sabha is 250 members. This strength is sanctioned by the Constitution, but actual strength is 245. Today, the present Rajya Sabha has 245 members, but the Constitution has fixed the maximum strength as the 250. And the Constitution also says that among these 250, 238 have to be elected by the states and the union territory. That is, the MLAs of states and the union territories, they have to elect the 238 members, and the rest of the 12 members, they have to be nominated by the President of India. These 12 members must be having some excellence. They should be having some field knowledge in different areas. The Constitution says that the people who are excellent in the fields like literature, arts, social science, and the science and the social science. In these 4 categories, if a person is excellent, he can be nominated to the Rajya Sabha. Right? In this way, 238 are elected, 12 members are nominated members. Right? This is the composition of the Rajya Sabha, and this is the term of office of Rajya Sabha, right? This is all about the election process and the Rajya Sabha in Indian parliamentary system. Thank you very much for watching this video.